Hi guys, I'm just another guy named James, and today I'm going to be talking about the origin of Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe. So, Snake Eyes is a character who, for most of his history, was completely shrouded in mystery. But starting with issues 26 and 27, we started to see some of the layers sort of peeled back. And if you want to see what's going on in the greater G.I. Joe universe at this same time, go check out the last video I made, because that is what that video is all about. So, a couple things to note about the story is it's split across two issues, but it's also split between a story told in the past and a story told in the present. So the story of the present is actually what we see get started first, as we see a kid trying to rob this convenience store where this old man is working. And the old man is really pretty calm about it, and then we see why and this kid is not just like, hey, give me some money. He's got a gun. He's gonna shoot this old man if he doesn't give him the money. So, but the old man's surprisingly calm, and then we get to see why when he unchambers the bullet from the gun and then removes the clip, and then he tosses the kid $50 and takes the gun from him. And then Snake Eyes reveals that he was there and that he is an associate of the old man. So now we shift to the first part of our story that is told in the past, as we see Hawk and Scarlet talk to Stalker in the pit. The pit is G.I. Joe headquarters, pretty much. And Stalker tells Hawk and Scarlet about how he and Snake Eyes fought together in the Vietnam War, along with this kid named Tommy, whose family owns a business that he will join after the war. And Tommy also offers Snake Eyes a spot in the family business. And then but Snake Eyes doesn't really care. He's looking at a picture of his sister that he considers to be his, good luck memento. So yeah, So a helicopter comes to pick up the three soldiers, but Snake Eyes gets caught in an ambush. Tommy and Stalker make it to the helicopter just fine. So Tommy runs out and saves him. We then again go to the present, where Stalker says that Tommy's last name translates directly from Japanese to Storm Shadow. So Tommy is Storm Shadow, the Cobra Ninja who the Joes have had to deal with in the past few issues. Again, you can go check out my video on that one if you would like. So Hawk picks up the story next, and he tells the story of how when Snake Eyes comes home from Vietnam, nobody is there to meet him at the airport. And eventually, 4 hours late, Hawk shows up and Hawk has to tell Snake Eyes that his family has all died in a car crash. And next, the old man picks up the story of the past as he recounts when Snake Eyes came to Japan, responding to Storm Shadow's standing offer to join the family business. And the family is a family of ninjas. And there were three head ninjas in this clan. There was the Soft Master, who is the old man who owns the convenience store. The Hard Master is the old man's even older brother, and the Young Master, who is the old man's nephew, who is also Storm Shadow. So they train Snake Eyes with them for many years, and eventually Snake Eyes becomes a greater swordsman than Storm Shadow, leading to this encounter as Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow dueled, which I'm actually just going to read straight up. So, who's going to win? I asked him. Snake Eyes or the Young Master? The Hard Master answered at once. Snake Eyes won the match before the first pass. We both heard the sound of the young master's blade as it cut through the sleeve. I chided my brother jokingly about his misjudgments of your prowess. My brother smiled. He hadn't overestimated your skill. He had underestimated your character. You had let the young master win, so he wouldn't lose face. But Storm Shadow was still the master archer, and he could shoot through a brick wall and still hit small animals. And Storm Shadow needing to kill to prove his sport created kind of the first bit of a rift between Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes' relationship. And then we see that one night while Snake Eyes was training with the Hardmaster was shot with an arrow through a wall, leading to the conclusion of Storm Shadow's guilt. Even though the Hardmaster says Storm Shadow is innocent, and the Hardmaster is also changing his heartbeat and breathing to make him sound like Snake Eyes, and Storm Shadow is able to shoot through walls because of how he hears. So the thought that Snake Eyes and the Softmaster have is that Storm Shadow was trying to kill Snake Eyes, but accidentally killed the Hardmaster. But the Hardmaster denies this, even though in his dying breaths he denies it. So next we get more flashes to the past from Hawk as he tells the story of how him and Stalker recruited Snake Eyes to join the G.I. Joe team. And they have to find him in this remote mountain shack where he lives with his pet wolf. And he goes rabbit hunting without any sort of weapon. But they're able to talk him into joining, and then Scarlet picks up the story explaining how when Snake Eyes arrived for training, she knew that he was the best, and he knew that he was the best. But he took a fall to save her pride from the rest of the Joes. So that led Scarlet and Snake Eyes to have a strong personal connection. So the next story we see is the Joes in the desert, and they're riding in helicopters, but one of the rudders goes out because it gets a bunch of sand kicked into it. And that causes the helicopters to crash into each other, leading Snake Eyes to have to rescue Scarlet, which he does, but then the window that he's standing right next to explodes, and his head is lit on fire, and his vocal cords are heavily damaged, so he can't speak. And even after he gets Scarlet out, his head's still on fire. So that's the end of the stories of the past. So now we cut back to Snake Eyes and the Softmaster in the shop. And Snake Eyes shoots into the street because the Softmaster tells him to, because the Softmaster believes Storm Shadow's there. But Storm Shadow is able to escape, and Snake Eyes goes chasing after him through the street. Hawk and Scarlet get info of this ninja chase, and they go after them. Snake Eyes loses his Uzi in a street sweeper, so now it's just a pure melee contest, as Snake Eyes chases Storm Shadow on top of a train, where Scarlet catches up in the Dragonfly, but the train is about to enter a tunnel. So Snake Eyes tricks Storm Shadow into lunging at him, leading both of them into falling between the cars, and clearing Snake Eyes' debt to Storm Shadow for saving his life back in Vietnam. And Storm Shadow reveals that a Cobra assassin killed the Hardmaster, not him. And that's why Storm Shadow is working his way through the ranks of Cobra, trying to build trust so he can figure out who it is and kill them. And then we go back to Scarlet, and when Scarlet reaches Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow is already gone. So that is the origin of Snake Eyes. It's pretty good. It's very interesting, and it doesn't what's nice about it is it answers all the questions you want answers to, but it doesn't take away anything from the character. Because one thing to note is, you never see Snake Eyes' face, and you never hear his voice. hear his voice. It's a comic book. You don't hear anything. But he never speaks and you never see his face. And those are two important things about Snake Eyes. You never get to see his face and you never hear him speak. Both of those rules are broken later in this very same comic book run. So for now, that's where we're gonna end coverage of the comic. But I'm also going to give the Snake Eyes origin movie a shake, see how it stacks up against the comic book. If I had to guess, it's not gonna go well. So I'm gonna pause the video here. We're gonna pick it back up, and you're gonna hear my predictions. So there are sort of 4 or 5 things that I'm expecting or hoping for from this movie. That doesn't mean I necessarily think they're going to happen, but they should happen. Alright, so first thing that I think really should happen or needs to happen is Snake Eyes has to serve in war before he goes to Japan. Because you cannot have Snake Eyes without him being a soldier. Otherwise, it's just not really Snake Eyes. And going along with that, I think you need to have Storm Shadow have a previously existing connection to Snake Eyes. That is a significant part of his origin story, as you just saw. So it really needs to be included. I would also throw onto the list that Snake Eyes' family has to die in a car crash, in something that he could not stop in any real way. So, let's see, what else? Snake Eyes has to have really reputable character, because as I mentioned in the recap video, you have that moment where Snake Eyes takes a fall so that Storm Shadow can save Face in front of his family. And again, he does it with Scarlet so that she saves Face in front of the other Joes. So in general, you have to believe that Snake Eyes is a humble enough character to do that. And the 5th one is something that I don't think will happen. I don't think really needs to happen, but it would be nice. And that's have Stalker serve in the military with Snake Eyes. So those are the 5 things that I kind of want to happen, or I think should happen. Do I think they will happen? Not in this movie, no, I don't. But alright, let's see if I'm wrong. Alright, so I just finished watching the Snake Eyes origin movie, and frankly, it was everything that I was expecting it to be. It was bad, it was a waste of my time, it was poorly cast, and it should not have been a G.I. Joe movie. So let's dive into that a little bit. So first off, just a second ago, I listed off all of the expectations that I had, that I said, oh hey, a Snake Eyes origin story needs to have these things for it to be a good Snake Eyes origin story. It had exactly 0 of these things. The first one that I mentioned was that Snake Eyes had to be a soldier. He was not in any way, shape, or form. He looked like he would never even think about it. Him and Storm Shadow had to have a past relationship. Again, no, and by relationship I mean friendship. But no, there's nothing between the two that would stop them from having a clash. Snake Eyes had to suffer an unavoidable family tragedy. No, he did not. And frankly, his only family in the movie is his dad, and there's no reason for it to be like this. This is just wholly inaccurate to the source material, to the only source material that there is, and I do not understand why. And frankly, the biggest problem with the movie, the last thing I mentioned was that Snake Eyes had to have extremely reputable character. that you had to believe that he was the kind of guy who would take a fall in a fight to help you save face. That did not happen. At no point in the movie is Snake Eyes a good guy. He acts purely based out of self-interest. Even the only potentially good thing he does at the beginning of the film is save Storm Shadow's life. And even that he only does to further his own ends. And overall, I think the Snake Eyes origin movie is an abject failure. But I do really, really, really like the Snake Eyes origin comic book because it's a massive success to me. It has everything, it answers all the questions I wanted answered, but it still leaves certain mystery alive. And the Snake Eyes movie, you had no questions that you needed answers to because it's like this soft reboot of G.I. Joe, but for some reason they started off with the origin of the character who's supposed to be a mystery. That was a bad move. But anyway, back to the comics and why I like them. I think the artwork is very good in these two issues. The first part of the story being drawn by Larry Hama, the second part by Frank Springer, right? Frank? Yeah, by Frank Springer. And I just think that the story flows very well. And there's never a point in the story where I'm like, that didn't make sense, or that would never happen, that was stupid. And overall, I think it's just a very good story. If you can find issues 26 and 27 of G.I. Joe, I would highly recommend. I would not recommend watching the Snake Eyes movie, because it was bad. Alright. Anyway, enough about that. I'm just another guy named James, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.